Prego. Grazie.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Fabrizio Tagliavini. I work at the ARPAV Avalanche Center in the Veneto region. We try to identify and create some tools that could be useful to the civil protection system at local level to have some civil protection plans or update the existing plans in areas where there are intense weather effects that can have cascade effects, as Michele showed in his presentation. Some of the things he mentioned, you will see in my presentation as well. We've talked about our projects a lot. Let us talk about the effects of the VAIA storm in the Veneto region. It was an extraordinary event in all its occurrences. There were flooding events with increased the hydrometric levels as compared to those in the previous years, and there were landslides that damaged houses and buildings in the mountain area and also in the valley, in the Cordevole, which is the area where we carried out a cross-border project. It's a huge, there's a huge area with trees that have fallen, and the morning after the 28th and 29th October, you will see tens of villages in the Veneto region, which with the cascading effects were under huge risks. They might have been aware of these risks by the risk of possibility that could have been avalanches. And some of the images in the Cordevole Valley had if there were morphological conditions, these would be settlements that are at risk. What have we learned from VAIA? We were involved in the creation of the civil protection plans and then surveys that were made for the avalanches risk. We have certainly learned that we need to optimize response timings, both for the training of citizens. We have carried out some training campaigns to minimize the cascading effects that can add up in a storm like VAIA. And we have understood how quick the decision-making process must be. It's fundamental. VAIA storm took place at the end of October. In early November, it could snow in the alpine valleys. So had it happened in the summer, then we would have had longer time to respond. You need to be very quick. What tool do we use? We carried out civil protection plans. The sooner you make them, the better you make them, the more sustainable they will be on a medium or long period of time, in the medium long term. This is what we focused on. We moved from having a look and what we did on looking what happened, and we tried to automatize all the decision-making processes, trying to find some IT tools that would allow us to get to results in the quickest possible way. And then, last but not least, we tried to make some civil protection plans that could be applied in a more realistic way. What we did, we tried to answer the questions that you see on this slide, to but by using some tools and models which can be used in the GIS system. So identify the potential release areas, and the tools that we carried out are used in the GIS environment. They are extensions by using some data and the roughness of the soil and an updated map of the land use. And then we created an algorithm which collects all the morphological data, like the slope, the complexity, topographic roughness indexing, and it automatically identifies all the new areas where an avalanche can take place. You put together this data, it's quite sensitive, and it responds in the right way in the pre-VAIA conditions and the post-VAIA conditions in the forest. Once you answered this question, once we answered that question, we needed to understand the trajectory of the avalanche. So what the avalanche runout will be. We know that there are many pieces of software that can be bought, and they can simulate an avalanche in a proper manner. We try to adapt some models on the morphological basis to simulate at the same time, in the case of VAIA, thousands of possible new avalanches at the same time. This was done. You see the model based on the morphological model. You see the avalanche run out with a slope. It has a stop angle, which has been set previously. The model foresees where the avalanches might detach and simulates the avalanche run out at the same time in all the basin. You see, this is the study area and part of the study area. We wouldn't have answered this question, which elements at risk may be affected. We simulate potentially thousands of avalanches, but where should we focus on? We classified by using a regional ranking. You focusing on the central column, all the vulnerable elements you find in a topographic map, and you cross the avalanche runout trajectory, and tells us what vulnerable element might be at stake. This allows us, let us bear in mind that we need to be as quick as possible in responding. You have a set of priorities to try and understand how the model can affect how the avalanche can affect these risk elements. This was done. You identify priorities, and then you use a model. This is the RAMS model, which is on the market. It was developed in Davos to understand the range of the avalanche, what its main elements will be. The result you see on the right-hand side is the same that we obtained by focusing on the experts' opinions, which arbitrarily identify the areas where the avalanche might detach. This is how you automatize the choice. And it's on a wider scale on the whole territory. These maps were used back then to create some civil protection plans, which are still being used in our area. What happened? It takes time, as we were saying earlier on, to make some mitigation works. The commissioner for emergency took care of that, so that the logs that they would not be moved in the VAIA area. And then the simulations that you saw beforehand were used to understand what areas would have been involved. So you see, for 35 centimeters of snow, some avalanches can detach, which will affect this whole area. You see some quantities of snow on the ground, and then some actions can start to stop areas, some roads in areas with 70 centimeters of snow on the ground, which can lead to an avalanche. Then the houses, there will be more houses to evacuate, and so on. What you see here is part of a civil protection plan. There are some observation areas where civil protection operators will keep an eye on the potential detachment of avalanches in a safe position, which can represent the area where the avalanches will detach. In these areas, a few things must be done by civil protection operators. You need to have a look at how much snow there is on the ground to see if what we saw in the previous table will take place. Then you might support the mayor, and then civil protection will carry out some further analysis and an extended column test or the sewing test. These analyses are all a very advanced analysis, and they determine a stability index in the area downhill, uphill. There's a civil protection plan platform where the volunteers enter the data. In every snowfield, they will enter the data, the relative data. The same platform will also show you a model of the snow cap. The civil protection system can access this platform and will see for each location if the snow on the ground or the snow which is forecast for the following days, there are alert situations. What are alert situations? A situation like the previous, in the situation like the previous one, there's no alert whatsoever. But as soon as you get to the other areas, then the alert levels will increase, increasing the number of times where analysis can carried out on the snow on the ground, having a better look at the avalanche activity which is taking place in the specific basin. All these things can stress the civil protection system, because the more alert you put in an area, the more often you will stress the work carried out by civil protection volunteers. I didn't mention one thing, which I want to mention now. You see, these are mitigation works pre-avalanche. These will prevent the avalanche from taking place until when they are completely covered by precipitation. The logs that are on the ground will act as anchors, but how long will they do that? The thresholds that I showed you earlier on in the table, those thresholds are considered valid starting from when the whole wood soil is covered by the snow. Right after VAIA, we didn't have enough time. There were many human settlements, many dozens of human settlements. We didn't have time to go and have a look at each individual location, each individual settlement. You can have a look at where there's high density of tall trees. There will be a higher intensity than an area with fewer trees. Arbitrarily speaking, when the civil protection plans were drafted, we decided that we would have this zero threshold, which from empirical observations might be the single threshold. Then we wondered, is this a realistic threshold? It might be underestimated or overestimated. These are two different issues. On the one hand, it might lead to measures way too often, and on the other hand, it might lead to measures way too little. What we tried to do in this TRANS-ALP process was to develop another application so that each location will have a different roughness. We wondered how to do it. We found some indexes that were not satisfactory because the roughness index, they don't give us the safety level. We started with the canopy model, canopy height model, sorry. And the result we wanted to obtain, if you want to have a look at a scheme, you see the trees on the ground, these rectangles you see there, they have a height. This is an example. So 1 meter, 80 centimeters, and so on. But what we want to obtain is the lights. So the security, when the snow will cover all this area, and from there onwards, you will have to assess the thresholds that we have identified beforehand. So if you take one value, here it would be 82.5 centimeters, the average height. Then you need the avalanche initiation freeboard. We tried to see what algorithm would suit us. We developed one. We did the canopy height model. We needed an algorithm that would use focal analysis, and every pixels the output. An algorithm was developed based on the focal analysis of LiDAR data. Each pixel, then some intermediate steps are needed. You need to remove all the elements that might hinder the calculation of the mean value. These are the results, the final results. You see two examples, the two most important ones, the two most striking ones. You see on the left-hand side, this is a village near Alleghe. The freeboard was 80 centimeters. And on the right-hand side was much bigger, 220 centimeters. These are two extremes to show you that some thresholds were overestimated, some were underestimated. You see how every location has its own threshold, has its freeboard. 80% of the instances In 80, so data show that in the HO under 20 centimeters was underestimated in 80% of the cases in the Cordevole Valley. 20% of the cases, it was overestimated. Some coincided. What we are confident in is that thanks to the GIS tools developed by the technicians of the ARPAV centers, it is now possible to speed up the decision-making process underlying civil protection plans. Thanks to the last part I showed you in the presentation, we will be able to identify different freeboards for each location, and this can optimize the activation of civil protection plans, making them more sustainable in the medium and long term, bearing in mind that the best solution is that to provide mitigation works. We're working on that. Many areas have been mitigated, not completely. Some structural works are being done right now. It takes time, of course. Our aim, if another event like VAIA happened, is that of being prepared to provide a quicker response to the emergency needs. This is it. Thank you very much.